The safeguards currently in place at the FBI are clearly inadequate and must be reworked to protect whistleblowers and others who are inappropriately targeted. The FBI can extract whatever they want from me. I'm willing to bear that burden. I've sworn to defend this country from enemies, both foreign and domestic, even if that means sacrificing my life. I've lived that oath out since first enlisting in the Army, consistently saying, "Here am I, send me." My oath, however, did not include sacrificing the hopes, dreams, and livelihood of my family, my strong, beautiful, and courageous wife, and our 4 sweet and beautiful daughters who have endured this process along with me. In weaponized fashion, the FBI allowed me to accept orders to a new position halfway across the country. They allowed us to sell my family's home. They ordered me to report to the new unit when our youngest daughter was 2 weeks old. Then, on my first day on the new assignment, they suspended me, rendering my family homeless. They refused to release our goods, including our clothes, for weeks. All I wanted to do was serve my country by stopping bad guys and protecting the innocent. To my chagrin, bad guys have begun running parts of the government, making it difficult to continue to serve this nation and protect the innocent. But I, for one, will never stop trying, and I'll never forget my oath. Thank you.
Sounds like he was sabotaged for speaking out. So
yeah, they're weaponizing security clearance. They're like they rendered him homeless, right? They moved him, then suspended him. They knew what they were doing, so they're just trying to inflict maximum punishment. And I recommend we'll share this in the comments, the link to the actual C-SPAN broadcast, but watch the other 2 that testified as well. Wow, their story is no different. Their story is no different. They were punished for speaking up against wrongdoing. You know, these people have a conscience. They saw what was happening was wrong. They tried to point it out, and then they were punished for it. And this is probably happening not just at the FBI. It's happening at the CIA. It's happening at the NSA. All the 3-letter agencies, FDA, you name it. There's wrongdoing happening, and then they're being punished through weaponization of different means.
Right. So the idea that this is publicized to one demographic, meaning the right wing, that type of division is polarizing, right? Like you develop biases, and then what happens is you have like adversaries when really y'all are in the same boat.
Right. Like both sides are getting targeted. If you listen to the other 2, they talk about they're doing harm to public safety. They were, using like SWAT teams against people that were nonviolent. They didn't need to go excessive force, but they use excessive force. Yeah, this is just like, we talk about the deep state. They've infiltrated all the 3-letter agencies, right? And they're controlling those 3-letter agencies. And when the good guys in these agencies, because I believe a majority of people in these organizations are good people.
Yeah.
But through these tactics that are being used, they are forced to do evil.
Yeah. So they probably feel like they're given no choice, right? Yeah. So, and when we think about, when I think about how this comes about, you ask the question like, how does it get here, right? And you mentioned the word infiltration. So let's say the deep state infiltrated. Now, one thing I noticed about corporations, they'll have like 30-year plans, like the government has 30-year plans. So you can't help but to question how long has this been planned out, like this type of behavior, is it?
Well, if you look all the way back to Eisenhower, he warned of the industrial military complex. This has been happening for some time. I personally don't want to go into a history lesson and then point out, this happened in 1947, this.
Yeah.
Let's look at what's happening today and fix what's happening today before we start looking at the history lesson.
Yeah, and the point there, though, for me is when it's premeditated, it's worse. It's worse than just a reaction from the powers in play, you know. But it's like a premeditated thing. So what's your opinion on the division it brings and the people that speak out about it? Like,
Yeah, so the division is put there on purpose. They want this whole like us against them, have a useless government by the elected officials because there's just so much divide. If you gave everybody the same information, chances are they're going to make the prudent decision that's best for everybody. But when you're feeding misinformation to both sides, you're feeding only some of the story over here and some of the story over here, you're not going to get agreement because, you know, if everybody sees things differently, consensus is damn near impossible. This is why we look at our government today is so divided. You know, it's like 50-50, you know, like they pick topics where it's just at the middle, right? Like there's half of the country this way, half of the country that way. So there's no, the way that the whole system is set up is just to make it so it's ineffective governmentship.
It makes you wonder though, what's the motivation behind that other than
well, we still pass legislation. Legislation gets
Yeah.
passed. But if you looked at the graph of, and this was like a pretty popular TikTok, if you look at from 0 to 100%, how much of the population agrees with a certain legislation to pass versus how much of the government is actually passing that legislation, it's about 30% across the board. Even if you're 100% people want this thing, only 30% of the time gets passed. If 0% of the people want it, it still gets passed 30% of the time, right? So we are so disconnected from a democracy, it's not even funny. But if you went and looked at how much the elite or the rich want something, that line is more in line with what you'd expect, where it's like if about 100% of the elite want something, it gets passed 60 to 70% of the time. So we're not a democracy. Like the legislation versus what the population wants, it doesn't happen.
So you're saying this division is created to work around the actual values of the Constitution, right? We have a democracy. We're given the option, but we feel empowered. But then the fact that we're so divided, we cannot consent on anything. So that kind of,
even if we did consent on it, even if 100% of the people did consent on it, chances of getting passed is 30%.